Champagne said that after them, a bag of evidence into nearby Lake Conroe. Police frogmen searched the lake, and miraculously, after a year and a half on the floor of the lake, found the bag. Inside, a half-full bottle of water, Bart Whitaker's cell phone, and some unused 9mm bullets.
It's the same type of ammunition that was used during the murder. It's a nice little connection.
Scientists weren't sure that the paint on the chisel could be tested.
It was corroded. It looked like it had fungus on it. I was able to find enough of the light blue paint that I could scrape off.
There was enough to test with infrared light and its chemical structures measured. The findings showed that the paint from the chisel was the same as the paint in Kevin Whitaker's bedroom. Analysts, water bottle. Amazingly, even though it had been submerged for 18 months, analysts found a genetic profile. The bottle's screw top sealed someone's DNA into the plastic threads of the cap.
They sent it off, had Chris Brashear's DNA on it. It just shows that Steve Champagne was telling the truth.
Almost 2 years after the murders, Chris Brashear and Steve Champagne were arrested and charged with capital murder. Ironically, neither Brashear nor Champagne was ever paid a cent for their participation in the crime. The ringleader, Bart Whitaker, fled to Mexico, but was later apprehended. Prosecutors believe the murders were meticulously planned. Bart called his parents with the bogus story he had passed his final exams and was set to graduate. His parents invited him home to celebrate. When the family went out to dinner, Chris Brashear entered the home with a key Bart gave him, but he dropped a glove outside, which later tied him to the crime scene. Once inside, Brashear broke into the safe in Kevin's room, stealing the Glock 9mm handgun, leaving the paint chips that tied the chisel to the scene. To make it look like a robbery, Brashear opened some drawers in the house, but the attempt clearly looked staged. Steve Champagne was at the restaurant and called Brashear as the Whitakers left. When the Whitakers came home, Brashear was waiting. He shot Kevin and Tricia in the chest. He shot Kent in the arm as he turned sideways, which saved Kent's life. Then shot Bart in the arm, as planned. When he tried to pick up the gun in his haste, he probably picked up Bart's cell phone by mistake. Then he ran outside through the back door and met Steve Champagne, who was waiting for him 2 blocks away. Brashear took a sip of water, then put it in the canvas bag along with the chisel and Bart's cell phone, and threw the bag into the lake. 18 months later, when the bag was recovered, Brashear's DNA was still on that bottle.
Stephen Champagne had provided a confession. All of the key pieces of evidence that were needed to corroborate his confession were contained in that bag.
You had to get the forensic evidence out of Lake Conroe. You had to have the dog scent from that night. Just like a jigsaw puzzle. And once all the pieces are there, it makes your puzzle, and that's what this did.
Chris Brashear 2 counts of capital murder and was sentenced to life in prison. In exchange for his testimony, he was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to 15 years in prison.
Hereby find the defendant, Thomas Bartlett Whitaker, guilty of the offense of capital murder as charged in the indictment.
Bart Whitaker was sentenced to death.
Forensic evidence tied all the other key components of this case together and allowed us ultimately to present the district attorney's office with a case that was, by the grace of God, as airtight as it could get.
It didn't matter whether Bart Whitaker really had a legitimate reason to hate somebody, if he just decided that he was superior than you and that whatever you had he deserved because he's better than you, he's getting it.
Up next, an execution-style murder and a sophisticated cover-up.
It was obvious right from the start that this crime scene had been altered.
An eyewitness sees two men leaving the scene.